Hello, hello.
Hey, how's it going?
I'm doing wonderfully. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. Just got back from the train station, booked a train to Virginia. Doing pretty decent.
Fantastic. What the fuck are you going to Virginia for?
Visit my girlfriend.
Hell yeah. That's what I
Mm.
thought it was going to be for some boring ass work shit. Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Getting
Nah, I
that.
blew up for work today.
All right, comrade. Hit me up. Introduce yourselves to the stream, please.
Hey, my name's Dylan Burns. I'm fine using my real name since I work in the industry. I'm a former Gravel teen. I was the state director for Gravel in the state of Maryland. I'm currently the foreign policy advisor for Michaela Wilkes, who's the primary opponent of everybody's favorite warmonger, Steny Hoyer. And well, that's generally what I do. The rest of it's just boring, like just inner politics stuff in Maryland.
So to clarify, whereas most of the people here are accommodated with politics in the YouTube drama sector, you actually do actual real politics for human beings who are alive in the real world. Is that correct?
Correct. I mean, recently I tried to run for office, but I was prevented because they had some provisions in the city charter that stopped younger people from actually running. I
What
still put
pieces
out
of
a
shit.
good leftist. Yeah, I would use that language, but sure. Yeah, I'll go there.
Oh, true.
But I
We
was
have to act in a professional capacity here. You're right.
professional. Yeah, we're true professional. Vosh, I know that you would never cuss or use dirty language on stream. You're known for your respectability online. You're a businessman yourself. You're a
Thank you
businessman.
for recognizing me for my most distinguished characteristics, and likewise to you. For those of you who I don't know why you wouldn't know because it's in the fucking title, but my boy over here is a foreign policy advisor, which means that it's actually literally their fucking job. Their names. Do you mind if I say your Discord name just because you're in the
Yeah,
service?
sure. Everybody knows me by Twappy.
Yeah, they're known as Twappy, not actually their real name, unfortunately. But it would be a good name if there's anyone named Twappy out there. I'm not shaming you, live your life. But anyhow, so people accuse me of not reading theory. I'm compensating, okay? I'm listening to theory today because we're gonna learn what the heck is going on out there. What is there even a place outside of America? Experts, undecided. We want to know. And the reason why this is so pressing, of course, is because, jokes aside, the Kurds are all about to die. With that in mind,
Not entirely, but that is what we should be treating with that urgency.
would you like to introduce the situation we're currently faced with, or do you want me to give my little soliloquy?
I can introduce a situation.
Hit it up.
So the Turkey does not exactly like the Kurdish people. They've been in a long conflict with a guerrilla group called the PKK, which was formerly led by a man called Asalan. He's still the head of the organization technically, and because of that, and their tie, the PKK's loose ties to the YPJ. I mean the YPG and the YPJ, and their ties to one of the political parties, and their ties to the official military, the SDF. Therefore, they say the SDF is a branch of the PKK, and therefore they are terrorists as well. And so, with that very loose justification, they see northern Syria as a threat to their territory because they could see the Turks, they could see their land maybe being taken up by Kurdish militias in the future. Really, everybody surrounding the Kurds are threatened by this because they all have Kurds in their land. There's also the fact that they want to resettle a lot of the refugees that are currently in Turkey in Kurdish land. A lot of people are calling it a ethnic cleansing because it would completely change the demographics of the region and the culture of the region. As well, it's prevented by Article 49 of the Geneva Convention. You cannot actually resettle refugees under occupied territory. So, with all that in mind, this was all being prevented by U.S. military presence. Obama was smart enough to know that the Kurds were a really good ally in fighting ISIS and religious extremism. And out of all the sides in the Syrian civil war, they're the one that was the most PR friendly because they're pretty good boys. I mean, they're not exactly going around beheading everybody and calling for religious like domination. They were more accepting. Not they're not perfect. There's problems with child soldiers and problems with some Kurdish nationalism, but compared to everyone else, they're pretty good. The problem is Trump is an idiot, like a really dumb boy. Like when it comes to dumb boys, he's the dumbest of the boys. And
Watch out with
without
that
really,
political divisiveness. If you're in a purple state, you might might be
Yeah,
compromising your
yeah.
electability.
I'm gonna state a controversial opinion. I do not think Trump is an intelligent man.
Oh shit!
I hopefully I won't get banned.
Oh,
Hopefully this is an
coming
okay
out hot.
area to say
Yeah.
this. Yeah, I'm going in really hard. But the thing is, this isn't the first time he threatened to withdraw, and the last time he was pushed back by everyone surrounding them because everybody saw like this could cause a genocide, this could cause ethnic cleansing, this would be backstabbing the Kurds for the millionth time. We really shouldn't do this, and so he was pushed back from doing it. But now that election season's coming around, and he hasn't really fulfilled any of his promises.
America first. Bring the troops home. Yeah.
Exactly. So he's trying to do it again. Now, this time it's with the justification of, well, the reason we're pulling out is because ISIS is 100% defeated. Not true. There's still a ton of ISIS sleeper cells, and the Kurds are probably one of the most effective forces to continue to put them down. And there's the fact that they hold a lot of ISIS prisoners. Unlike a lot of the other factions, they're not just executing every single prisoner they come in contact with. They actually have a working judicial system. Another reason why they're one of the better factions in the civil war. And so because of that, they have a huge amount of ISIS captives and their families, and it's so bad that the resources are getting strained. Right now, America hasn't had to directly deal with this, but all the nations that like the foreign nationals that came to fight here don't want to take those ISIS fighters back for obvious reasons. It just isn't a good thing to tell your voters, like, don't worry, I'm importing ISIS. Are we all cool now? Like, that's just it's not good PR. So Turkey, apparently Trump was convinced by this. Turkey told Trump that, don't worry, if we invade northern Syria, we'll deal with all the ISIS people. That, but not everybody forgetting the fact that Turkey bought ISIS's oil and helped actually supply their rise because they saw they wanted the region to be destabilized, and they wanted oil.
So to
So
clarify, given the
mhm.
context here, would you consider Trump pro ISIS?
um in the same context he called Obama pro ISIS, most definitely.
Okay.
If anything, I would say what he's doing is the biggest gift to ISIS since the start of the Syrian civil war. It really is. Because what's going to happen is if you're getting invaded by a foreign invader, you're going to have less troops to station around the area. I just actually got a report recently, like a few hours ago, that they're taking troops away from oil fields on the border with the Syrian government and moving them north for obvious reasons because they're about to get invaded. They're going to be taking guards from, these areas that are like being protected away from there to go to the border. I hear that the French Legion and the SAS are now actually having to pick up. And because of this, ISIS are going to be able to break out of some of these camps. And if conflict gets to these areas where there are camps, it's going to give more opportunities for ISIS leaders to actually escape and start rebuilding. And then you add that with the destabilization that an invasion will cause, and the migration that it will cause, that is just a breeding ground for extremism. So Trump's move here, honestly, is one of the biggest gifts to Islamic extremism in the last 5 years.
So I want to back up really quickly because there are a few pieces of context that I feel some members of my audience might be missing. Really quickly. So for those of you who don't know, the Kurds are an ethnic group. The people who are mostly involved in this, the people who are currently at threat of being wiped out, they're an ethnic
Correct.
group in Turkey and adjacent regions, but mostly Turkey. And they've been kind of getting the shit end of the stick for a while. Like a really long time. I'm pretty sure they were promised a state of their own after World War One. It just never happened. They've always had a cultural predilection towards more progressive, left-leaning political tendencies. I don't know, like it's not like a skull-shaped thing. They just culturally things sort of panned out that way, and
Hmm.
they've gotten kind of picked on for that. And after the destabilization following the Syrian conflict, there were members of the sort of Kurdish community in Turkey that had both a political excuse and the means to sort of move downward and capture this territory. And they formed an independent region called Rojava. Please settle it for me.
Uh, I've always said Rojava.
Rojava. And this Rojava is by and large probably the most progressive sort of invocation of political thought in the region. Ever. It's actually pretty extraordinary. There are problems with it, undeniably. Some ethnic sort of preferential treatment, and there's some criticism concerning the treatment of journalists in some case. But for the most part, like, this is an extraordinarily progressive group. Feminist. It's written in the constitution: men and women treated equally. That's kind of a big deal in the Syrian region. With principles towards like. Anarchism and anti-capital. It's a very extraordinary project, and they've done very well in the region. But of course, being that they are currently the world's largest and most successful anti-capitalist project, or debatably, they're up there.
Hmm.
They are they kind of had a target painted on their back. The United States of America worked with them because they had a shared enemy in ISIS. Turkey didn't like this very much because Turkey felt they could lose political clout, land to the Rojava project. So they've sort of had their eyes on that territory that was carved out by by their militia forces, and now that the U.S. has pulled out, they have an excuse to sort of jump in. And it's very simplistic, but the Kurds, generally speaking, have been good comrades and good allies. There is an overlap between them and Antifa. They're shared ideological tendencies, and they tend to like wear that flag. And Antifa here tend to be supporters of them. So when Trump agreed to pull out, we're basically facing the Rojava militia facing off against Turkey, and Turkey is a state backed by Russia at that. So that's a pretty one-sided conflict. Did you, Dylan? Did you read? I think this was really recently, but they're actually considering partnering with Assad to defend against Turkey.
I do want to address that, but first I want to say that thank you for addressing the ties between Antifa and the fighters on the ground, because I mean a lot of people have been confused by their tactic to throw cement milkshakes at Turkish tanks, but it's really complex and you really wouldn't understand it.
It clogs the
But
treads. Okay.
exactly, exactly. But this isn't the first time they've threatened to do this. Last time when Trump actually said he was going to pull out, they actually talked to the Syrian government because they got really hectic. They got scared because, facing genocide, you'll do whatever you need to do to save your people. And they've also done this with when Afrin was invaded. They actually worked with the Syrian government and moved in some troops to secure some of the area. And they've been using guerrilla tactics in that region for a while. So this is just a case of this would be a more large scale operation if they did so. But from the reports I've been reading, this is a really interesting situation right now. Is the city of Manbij? I think I'm pronouncing it correctly, where there are fighters on the ground that have promised to fight and defend the city. The Turks, allied with the FSA, which is basically it's the Free Syrian Army, but at this point it's just a Turkish militia working with local terrorists. Said that no, we're actually going to take it, and then the Syrian army said, actually, no, we're going to take it. And on the other side, there's a river, and if you were to take out those bridges, then the whole city would kind of be trapped. So it's a really scary situation right there where if they don't work with the Syrian government and this operation does go through, then that could mean just a complete slaughter in the city of Manbij if these three forces collide, and it could mean direct confrontation between Assad's forces and Turkey's forces, which would also mean confrontation between Russia and Turkey, which is really scary since Turkey's a NATO ally.
How many people currently are in Rojava? Like who are allied, not just
You mean like civilian, or do you mean like how many troops did it have?
what's the death toll if Turkey gets what they want?
Like a prediction.
Yeah.
I mean, I would not. It's hard to say because I don't know how deep they would go. I do not think they would just plow through the entire thing. They're only going to take about, I think, 10 to 30 miles of land, in my opinion, which is still a lot, but they're not going to take the entire thing.
Are
I'm
they at
pretty
all
sure they're.
afraid of Assad?
Are they at all afraid of Assad? I think they're afraid of the political implications if they were to confront Assad directly, because that could mean confrontation with Russia, and with them being between Russia and Assad, that's not really the best place to be. A lot of people also forget that people really need to consider what Iran is going to be thinking of the situation. But I would say that when it comes to Assad, they do not want to get into a direct confrontation with Assad, and that's why they didn't completely take all of Afrin when they moved in. And so that does say to me that they do not want to have a direct military confrontation with Assad's forces out in the open.
Do you think that if since Iran is a concern, obviously being a neighbor to all of this, given that Iran is a concern, do you believe that? And tying threads here. Trump's decision to pull out of the nuclear accords may have influenced or hampered our ability to meaningfully negotiate with Iran.
Um,
Like we have less control over that area of the world because we pulled out of that agreement.
I would say that the nuclear accords, it's of course was a horrible decision for him to pull out of it. It's just him being egotistical, and but a lot of Republicans have wanted that for a while. Actually, they don't talk about it a lot because it's not really good PR. It'd be like, hey, we should get closer to nuclear war just so we can scare our opponents. It's not really good PR, but they've wanted it. I would say that most of the confrontation with Iran doesn't really have to do with that, and more just has to do with our renewing of sanctions, our constant prodding at them, and shooting us, threatening to bomb them. The one time that really scared me again. People are like, I don't know if they forgot about this, but it was when Iran shot one of our drones that were most likely in their territory, and we were inches away from bombing and killing Iranians inside of Iranian land, which would have been
A good
a
meme, by which I
it would
mean
have been a
horrible.
fun time, it would have been a great time, a wonderful day. A war with Iran would be one of probably more catastrophic than a war with Iraq. I can actually guarantee you it would
Oh God,
because
yes, with Iran,
the,
absolutely. Well, I mean, Iraq. Like I know Iraq wasn't like a dirt pile when we invaded it or anything, but I'm pretty sure Iran's general level of infrastructure is much greater than Iraq's. Am I wrong at that?
well, the main reason why an invasion would be bad is number one, the region that we already invaded. By the way, you forgot to mention somebody's birthday.
Uh
How that was really rude of you. You
oh.
forgot it's Afghanistan's birthday yesterday. The Afghanistan war.
Hey,
They turned
18
18.
years.
Yeah. Woohoo. Come on. Let's celebrate. Let's give it a little birthday hat, give it some cake, and draft it. We should draft the war to itself. But when it comes to Iran, we haven't even completely secured the regions we have invaded, right? So if we then destabilize them, which will also probably destabilize the Yemeni conflict because of the supplies they give to the Houthis. I know they at least give them oil. I can't confirm anything
I'm
else
not
than that. I
familiar
do
with
know.
this conflict. Could I get an ELI 5?
So basically, Yemen has not had a good time for the past ever. There used to be two Yemens, like a southern Yemen and a northern Yemen. The southern Yemen was communist, Soviet Union fell. Then they got back together, and then everybody's like, "Oh, this isn't actually cool beans. Can we separate again?" And then there was a little conflict, and that didn't work. And the Houthis, which were in northern Syria, like all conflicts in the Middle East, it wasn't just like we feel extra Muslim today and we just really, really hate all like democracy and freedom, so we're gonna rebel. It was mostly economic concerns and like political freedoms that caused it, like most conflicts in the Middle East. And that of course went on cross tribal lines and religious lines, and the Houthis have been able to defend themselves. They originally allied with a previous government, but that has kind of gone to the wayside. Now it's mostly a Houthi rebellion supplied by the Iranians. But the what has shocked me the most about this conflict is how completely just useless Saudi Arabia is in like a direct military conflict. I mean, they have just completely botched this. I mean, it's a lot of top down just bureaucracy that has completely like stopped them from being able to take out the Houthis. And of course, I'm not really for the continuation of this war. I supported Bernie Sanders' bill passing, and I was very happy that it did. Of course, Trump vetoed it because America.
Right,
But
naturally.
yeah, so most of this, like all conflicts in the Middle East, was started because of yeah. Oh, you got the live Syria map? Yeah, that's a really useful resource. But when it comes, most things it was started by like economic and political freedom conflict, and it just branched out into ethnic tensions.
Hmm. Would you okay? So everything that's going to happen is, I imagine, going to happen pretty quickly. Do you think even if we got like okay, Bernie Sanders is probably not going to win the primary. Unfortunately, just looking at polling projections, it's probably going to be Elizabeth
Hey,
Warren.
hey, hey! Come on, man.
I know, no. I
Slow that
listen. I
down.
love
Slow
being
that down. Come
optimistic,
on.
but okay. Um, so, but even if we got a Bernie Sanderino, even if we got a president who, an ethical, on board, would help in the region, is
hmm
there like this is going to be done by the time 2021 rolls around, isn't it? Like, there's not much we can do, is there?
Um,
Not in an electoral sense.
you're absolutely wrong.
Oh,
Um,
okay, please.
we just actually Mitch McConnell Mitch McConnell, what I forget how my Amy. I was about to say Amy Schumer, Nancy Pelosi,
You know, tomato, tomato.
Chuck. I meant Chuck Schumer. Chuck Schumer and the big boy in the house. I forgot his name already. He's not really talked about as much anymore. But all of them, all the top boys and girls, and basically almost the entire Republican Party and Democratic Party, except for Ron Paul, are all against Trump on this. They're all condemning him. They're calling like an idiotic move. They are even calling it a backstab. They're even calling it a backstab, and that we're backstabbing our allies, and are telling him we should move back into the region. And they have actually threatened to put sanctions on Turkey in defiance of Trump. This is the Republican Party right now bucking
Wait,
Trump.
why would they care? Why do they care about Rojava?
American empire. I mean, the thing is, Rojava is an avenue for them to have military influence in the region for the Republicans, and some of the Democrats care about the genocide that, of course, would incur, and the same thing with American empire.
But
So
there's
this is the one of
no.
the
This is a criticism I see a lot from tankies that Rojava can't be trusted because they accepted aid from the United States. And I've always rebuked that claim, saying like, if you were a fledgling anarchist project, of course you're going to accept any military help that you can if it gives you the power and resources necessary to later assert your own independence. So like I feel like Rojava is also waiting for an opportunity to eschew its ties to America. I mean, America, the great Satan, we know
well,
how it is. I'm,
well,
I'm
I mean,
surprised America wouldn't want to, break up first.
well, this is this is one of the rare instances where people's like interests overlap, but for different reasons, right?
Yeah.
Where Rojava wants to defend itself because obviously it doesn't want to be genocided, and it wants to have the continued experiments and keep going, and wants to be one of the true democracies in the Middle East, and they want to defend what it has built on a theoretical level, right?
Hmm.
And the Americans, it changes for some people. It's because they have a genuine like they like probably what Rojava's doing. I'm pretty sure like Ilhan Omar might, even though she actually talked about how this, if we do this, this is a gift to Iran, which was a weird statement from Ilhan. I
Yeah,
didn't think it was.
Iran doesn't serve to benefit that much from this, do they? Like, Iran doesn't want to see Turkish power increase in the region.
They don't like it's the Turks, but they also don't really want the Kurds to be doing too good either,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
again, America's influence is right there, and they also have Kurds in their borders, so they would have the same concerns the Turks currently do. They just don't have the means to like directly invade, because if they did, that would almost be like an instant war. But we're cool with Turkey doing it; like they're fine if they commit genocide. It's all cool.
Right.
Also, there's something that people haven't been talking about a lot. Before this agreement was done to pull out, um, there was an agreement basically with the Turkish government that 10 miles into SDF land, there would be like a safe zone. 5 miles, it was like small arms, and 10 miles, it was like heavy weaponry, right?
Yeah.
And this agreement was made to please them, and they would have joint American and Turkish patrols. Right after this agreement was done, and the Kurds were already like unsteady about it, is when Trump announced the pull out. So the Kurds demilitarized their border with Turkey, taking away any
A
defenses they could have
fucking
had from a
snake.
Turkish invasion. And then Trump's like, screw it, we're pulling out now, allowing the Turks to basically, they could just roll in for 10
I
miles,
hope they
just
expected
completely
that
taken from the
betrayal.
border.
Maybe they, didn't adhere 100% to the deal. That'd probably be in their benefit.
I mean, it was a situation where they had to weigh their options and think, what can we do here? Can we actually just defy American orders and keep our things there, and have to maybe deal with Trump, who already has showed that he wants to pull out in the past? It was literally bending backwards for that idiot, so they could keep their forces intact in their nation, and well, not nation, but their forces intact. But then he just stabbed them in the back. I mean, it's just like the old Kurdish proverb: the only friends are our mountains.
So you, that is a good proverb. So do you believe then that the that Rojava, possibly with the assistance of Assad, will be able to hold off Turkish aggression long enough for America to get its shit together and maybe send allies back?
From what I've been very surprised at the speed that Turkey has been able to militarize the border. They already have
Uh,
they have tanks there already. They have many artillery. They've already actually. I just got a report 10 minutes ago. I was just notified that they've actually, because I saw that they bombed the border between northern Syria and Iraq yesterday, and I was confused by it because it wasn't actually in SDF controlled territory, but they actually took out the supply route. So this was something they had prepared for a while. The speed at which they were able to get troops there really baffled me. So it's really a race against the clock on whether they can make an agreement with Assad and how fast did the Americans pull out. And the last thing, which people haven't been considering, what the American legislator will do in response to Trump, because it looks this was an angle I didn't really consider, that the Republican Party would actually buck Trump, definitely in a moment of weakness with his impeachment proceedings.
Holy shit. Turkey's military is huge.
Yeah, it's a big boy. Definitely when I consider, like, the last report I saw was like maybe the SDF was like 70,000 people like all together when it comes to like their military forces, and not nearly as well supplied.
Turkey has the ninth largest army in the world. It has 300,000 soldiers. Holy
This
shit.
is why we put up with their abuses and want to keep them in NATO. They're in a very strategically good position between Russia, between the Middle East, and this is why we allow them to stay in NATO even after they, violate human rights abuses.
Yeah, more than 1% of their population is military personnel. God. Okay, well, so Turkey has obviously been gunning for this. It's even possible that Turkey and Trump spoke prior to Trump's decision to pull out, maybe
They
sometime in the
did. They
past.
did.
They
They did.
did?
I can
Okay.
tell you, I can actually confirm that there was a phone call, and the decision was made after a personal phone call between Trump and Erdogan, which again shows me that Trump is he's very impulsive. I mean, this isn't breaking news, but this was an impulsive decision that he
Wait,
didn't
I think I
really
read about
contemplate.
that, and one of the White House officials was literally like, yeah, Trump sounded like a coward on the phone or something like that. Like he just kowtowed.
I didn't hear that report, but I wouldn't be surprised.
Listen, I like this. I like the sensationalist media. You know how it goes. You know my attention span. This is
Of course.
this is all very disheartening. Does Assad? So wait, let's briefly talk about Assad here. Okay.
Mhm.
Because Assad is, listen, I get in arguments with lots of tankies, okay? But Assad doesn't come up nearly as much, not nearly as much as like China or Russia or what have you.
Yeah.
So as I understand it, Assad controls the southern portion of Syria, and he's kind of a genocidal dictator, and he's backed by Russia, but he has
Mhm.
shared military interests with Rojava in the region because neither of them want to see Turkey push further south. Is that correct?
Their military interests are sometimes the same, sometimes contradictory. So, like Syria, Assad, of course, wants all of the territory that is right now Rojava to be Syrian, because like just like 10 years ago it was. So they want that, but they also know that if the Turks get a hold of that land, they're not seeing that for decades, because they're going to work with the now basically Turkish puppet FSA, which has already announced they're going to participate with at least 14,000 troops in the invasion of Rojava. So this is one area where they will work together if forced. Rojava really doesn't want to. They would rather work with America because they know that at the end of the day, Assad wants all this land back.
Mm-hmm.
Where America hasn't really declared if they're ever going to have like what the peace deal would ever be, if there would even be one.
Yeah, there are only
Um,
wolves for Rojava to ally with at this point, it seems like. It doesn't really seem like
really,
they have any opportunities to ally with people who like genuinely share their interests.
yeah. I mean, this isn't news to anybody, but the Middle East is a very unstable region. A lot of
Yeah, well, really? Thank you
yeah.
for adding your that expert opinion to this. Oh god, I'm
You're
so glad
welcome.
I
I
live
won't
in
charge you for
America.
that either.
Thanks. I'm so glad I live in America. And this may be a horrible imperialist country, but at least it's all done abroad, okay? I can play my video games in peace. I can't imagine living in these villages. Good
Uh,
lord.
I mean, I've already been told that there are evacuations happening on the border, small scale. There's also been protests on the border, which I didn't expect. Like, I don't know what's going to happen if a tank confronts like a
I
large
don't
group
know
of
what
protesters.
that's gonna do.
Yeah, I mean, like, will they mow down the protesters? I don't know if their first step in an invasion would be literally just mowing down a group of protesters. I don't know if they're ready for that PR. But then again, it is Erdogan. A lot of this is based off the fact that Erdogan is actually failing pretty bad in Turkey. Like his like economic reforms are really really bad, and so it's one of those situations where like it's kind of like the Idi Amin situation where I need to like get everybody's mind off the fact that I really suck, so I need to invade
Well,
somewhere.
that's every fascist, right? Every fascist, like, inevitably their economic policies are delusional, so they compensate by getting, like, war fervor stirred up in the population.
Of course. This
That's
is
a
after like a
classic
really
move.
bad small electoral defeat in the capital, where I think the mayorship actually went to their rival party, which is a big embarrassment for him. He actually like tried to contradict and say, no, this didn't happen. I need a recount. This didn't happen. And so they did. And then it's like, oh, no, it happened again.
Erdogan pulling what we like to call a pro gamer move. Um,
He's a
the
pro gamer.
okay, so Turkey is terrible. Iran is well, Iran's leadership isn't great, but you know,
Mhm.
um, with so I assume you have a low opinion of Assad, generally speaking, correct?
Of course, I have a low opinion of Assad. The problem, I have a big
I argue
problem
with
with.
so many tankies.
I've met a lot of people in the chat. Don't worry. I the issue with a lot of the left is that if it's anti-America or if it just has us not being involved with something, or if they just don't like us, therefore it is good.
That's it. That's literally their only consideration. They're like the left-leaning version of the anti-SJWs, whose only political criteria is that it triggers the libs. As long as it triggers America and there's a red flag somewhere, it's good, and they'll defend it uncritically till the end of time. So Assad, genocidal maniac. Listen, it's all good because he sticks his thumb out at America and doesn't listen to no America, and that's all it takes. That's the whole.
A a good example I like to use. I even had this with a friend of mine who like tried to get me work at like a at a think tank. Um, I remember talking about Chinese colonialism, right? And its real existence in nations like Zimbabwe with the Mugabe regime. Um, and the confrontation after that happened was like really emotional. It was accusations of yellow fever and just this is just pro-American propaganda and that Africa actually loves China and that everything's fine. And what I eventually just realized is that since America has just been fumbling around the world for the past decade, just basically butchering the area, people have basically gotten to this mindset of anything else must be better, not realizing that if you look in the situation in Hong Kong, if you look at the abuse of workers by the Chinese companies in
Well, they'll
Zimbabwe,
defend
or
that too. Listen. That's the People's Republic of China. Okay, those Hong Kong workers are bourgeois, imperialist counter-revolutionaries who are trying to destroy the workers' state after being infiltrated by CIA interests. Have you not read Our Communism? It's all there.
look, I mean, it's very evident. I mean, look, if you look at all the protesters, you can see that they're actually like flying little American flags. Therefore, if they just nuke Hong Kong, it's all cool. But the thing that gets me about Hong Kong is the tactics being used against the protesters should make anybody who sympathizes with the far left angry. I mean, the cops are dressing up as protesters, going into the protest, and then brandishing guns against protesters. Somebody
Look,
got shot in the chest.
ta-
So
tankies are all ACAB unless there's a red flag stitched on that uniform. You ask tankies how they feel about cops, they'll froth at the mouth. And you show them a video from Hong Kong, they'll go, well, actually, you see, the protester was being extremely aggressive here. Now, this police officer had every right to enact like defensive measure, like that, like 100% the bootlicking. The Blue Lives Matter comes out. It's phenomenal. It's the people's police.
the good example is always this guy. The person who got shot in the chest in Hong Kong,
Hmm.
he like swung like a pole or something at the cop, and so the cop after the cop ran at him, and then the cop shot him in the chest, and apparently that is enough force to respond with a bullet during a protest where everybody knows people are going to be carrying sticks around. Now, if you applied that same thing here, and an American shot an Antifa protester with a who had a bamboo pole or whatever, they would be going crazy.
Oh yeah,
And
we'd
the
lose
only
our shit
difference
over
to
it. Yeah.
them, yeah. I mean, it's just ridiculous. Tankies are just horrible. Tankies are bad about everything, but foreign policy is just entertaining to me. And
Yeah,
they're all
that
Tulsi stands as well. They're all
I like
Tulsi stands.
they tend to be like really really bad with theory and understanding leftism and basically everything. They're just generally terrible. But like listening to them talk about foreign struggles through their lens of like completely like impotent myopic anti-American imperialism with no other ideological framing as long as it's anti-American, like they're good with it. It actually makes me want to kill myself. It's incredible how many bad takes you can fit into one Reddit post.
The most aggravating one for me personally, and this comes from a personal experience. So when I was working on the Mike Gravel campaign,
Mhm.
I knew some people who worked with the Sudanese revolution in the state of Maryland. And so I brought them on and we actually had a podcast and a long form interview and we talked about people being raped, brutally killed, bodies dumped in rivers. And I remember at one point before the talk, I asked them about whether we could ask them questions that has to do with Saudi Arabia and other things. and they told me that their families are scared about that, and they would like to not be asked that question because they don't know what kind of consequences they could get or if they could be killed. That, to me, interviewing somebody is a very emotional experience because I know these people personally, and that hurt me on,
Yeah.
like, a deep level. I've never seen a single tankie ever even talk about the Sudanese revolution, even though it had a general strike. The Sudanese revolution, one of the main reasons it was successful is because of a general strike.
Wait, what does a general strike have to do with communism? Communism is when an elite group of autocrats seize control of the government and basically replicate the authoritarian superstructures they took control of. What does workers' power have to do with a left leaning movement?
Exactly.
Wait, okay, wait. Memes aside, um, I'm seeing right here on the map. Apparently, an Israeli official also spoke ill of Trump's decision to pull out because it strengthens Erdogan. I didn't know it was possible for Republicans to do anything Israel didn't like. Like if this go so like literally nobody is happy with this. Like
Yeah,
no
no,
human.
the only person that was happy with this is Trump himself and Erdogan. Every single other person that is close to Trump hates this except for Rand Paul. And of course, Rand Paul has always been like this when it comes to foreign
It's
policy.
extraordinary to me. It really is because I used to think like a little while ago, maybe like early left, like when I was early leftist, but like before Trump really like hit his stride, I used to think like, ah, yes, all governments are run by humans, sure, but the American empire has always been expertly capable of leveraging its power to ensure the maximum possible benefit from. Like this isn't just like evil, which it is. It's also incompetent. Like nobody benefits from this. We don't even benefit from Turkish strength in the region. Like there's no nothing.
There's no benefit. Nobody gets benefit from this except for the Turks. No one else. It's literally just Trump either being a coward or just trying to help us pull numbers by pulling out. But I mean, I haven't seen any like jump in the polls because he decided to pull out of Syria. All I've seen is a bunch of articles saying that hey, Trump may have just facilitated a genocide.
Nice meme. What if hey, here's the big meme, okay? What if Assad and Rojava team up, all right? And Iran and they all take down Turkey. All right? You want to put bets on it? 1 to 1,000?
Um, I would say that it's more likely that Jeb Bush wins this election.
Are you saying you don't want Jeb Bush to win the election?
Look, okay, I was part of the Jeb Bush guerrillas as much as the next like lefty, but I don't think I just think his leadership has gone off the wall.
Jeb. All right. Guys, just so you know, like the map that I've been looking in, I've been like super zoomed in. The yellow and red portions, along with the little green bits here, constitute like the Syrian region. This whole fucking block right here is Turkey. Like Turkey dwarfs the Syrian region. And this is
Mm.
Iraq, and this over here is something. I think that's
Oh,
still Iraq.
have you talked about like the situation with Kurdistan and Iraq anyway?
But
Have you talked about that at all?
no, in fact, I'm completely ignorant of the situation. Hit
Okay,
me
I
up.
would love to tell you about this. So of course the Syrian Kurds and the Iraqi Kurds are pretty allied closely.
Oh,
Like
really quickly,
they
a good question from Chad. I'm really sorry. Do you think do you think there's any possibility of the Iraqi Kurds joining with Rojava to bolster their population and strength?
they've been working together, but they would not do that if they want to stay allies with America, because of course America has a pretty big project in Iraq.
Yeah.
Like a very like long project with Iraq. It's good to work with the military at the moment, but I can actually get into this. What happened was that, of course, when ISIS was taken over, they also weren't just in Syria, even though that's what we talk about. A lot of us forget they were also in Iraq. And they kind of went buck wild over there too. And the Kurds over there as well pushed them back, even though the Kurds have been going under. We have backstabbed the Kurds before in Iraq when it came to Saddam Hussein, when we gave them support and then sacrificed them to Saddam, and then, the gassing.
And then we
But
came in and dealt with Saddam, but didn't really do anything about the Kurds. Yeah.
exactly. So what happened was that they successfully pushed ISIS back over there. And then in 2017, they were like, okay, so we're a bunch of Kurds. We got Kurdish land. Let's have a referendum on Kurdistan. And then they had a vote, and the Kurdistan vote was like, okay, we want a state. And Iraq was like, nope. And then marched their troops into Kurdish land and took oil fields. And they didn't take all of it, but well, I mean, it's also Iraqi land. I mean, blah blah blah. But they didn't take all of it, but they took a lot of oil fields. And so that was basically a like throwing off of the idea that they can declare a state.
Gotcha. So But you don't think there's a likelihood of like Power Rangers or like the Dragon Ball Z fusion where you do the dance and then you touch fingers and turn into like one Kurdistan that single handed? Probably not.
I mean, the odds of that happening, it would mean that Iran, Turkey, Iraq, Syria, and America all were like, cool, okay, that's fine. Yeah, we'll just let that happen. I mean, all of our interests are saying no, but nah, that's cool.
Yeah, I mean, America can do it at once, even if nobody likes it. But like, we're America, so
I
it's
mean,
okay.
yeah, but we're
We're
not going
America.
to because of again our project in Iraq. We would probably there's a chance we could do it in Syria, but of course we're doing the SDF Syrian Democratic Forces for a reason. It's a lot of relabeling and trying to get other people who are not Kurds recognized by Rojava, which is working, which is slowly evolving just from Kurdish nationalism, which I like. Which I like.
Does Saudi Arabia have any like major stakes in what happens here?
Um, Yes. Their major stake is always going to be that they want to combat Iran. And the same way they're combating Iran in Yemen, they want to combat Iran here. And Iran, of course, has an alliance, well, not a direct alliance, but they work pretty closely with Syria. Therefore, if the Assad regime is gone, that's good for them because the Assad regime works with the same people that are
Okay, all
fighting.
right. So Turkey and Saudi Arabia get something out of this. Trump bid for poll numbers, and it doesn't look like it's working. And literally every other human on the planet dislikes it. Okay, that's cool. All
Yeah.
right. Thank you, Saudi Arabia. Very cool. Well, can't wait for your kingdom to fall. What an incompetent dictatorial state, honestly.
I mean, if anything, I mean, hey, they got on the right side. I mean, their thing. I mean, their economy's like pretty reliant on oil right now, but they're trying to evolve away from it. I mean, they're horrible and they're disgusting, and everything they're doing is grotesque. But hey, they picked the right side, right?
If America stopped like supporting Saudi Arabia within a few decades, they would probably see like insurrection, right? I feel like a lot of their stability is predicated on them being friends with us.
Um, a lot of their regional power is predicated on being friends with us, right? Because you got to think that the Middle East, a lot of it's American dominated, but there's two blocks. There's basically the Iranian bloc and there's the Saudi bloc. The Saudi bloc's also allied with the Israeli bloc.
Hmm.
And
Interesting.
when we look at it through that lens, we can understand basically every single conflict in the Middle East more deeply. Because then the Houthi conflict makes a lot more sense. Then the Syrian conflict makes a ton more sense. Because if Assad was taken out, one of the major blocks of the Iranian bloc, the only like last vestige they would have would be Yemen. So it was really going to be a huge power shift if Assad was actually gotten rid of. But without American support, I would depend on when it happened and exactly what you mean. Like, do we just pull out our military? No, I think they've been able to build a certain military. Do we stop selling them guns? Well, I think they would transfer over to probably other nations like China or Russia for military arms.
Are
But we could
Turkey
definitely
are Turkey and Saudi Arabia implicitly allies?
uh No, I can't really say. I haven't actually looked at their relations too much, but I can't say that I haven't seen too many conflicts. But in any way that Saudi Arabia, America's in conflict with Turkey or Israel's in conflict with Turkey, it's probably the same for Saudi Arabia.
Gotcha. Okay. Whew. All right. Where do you think we're going to be in 6 months, realistically
Um,
speaking?
Realistically speaking, you see that like really long road between Iraq and that goes through like you see the one the
Yeah,
map
yeah.
is
It
just
runs
on it.
east west and it runs to the Turkish army segment
Yeah.
of
I
northern
would say
Syria.
basically all of that is going to be controlled by the FSA, which is allied with Turkey, most likely, unless the legislator acts. The
Is the
legislature.
FSA Turkey's army or is that
The FSA stands for Free Syrian Army, and they've been allying more with Turkey as of late. You see all that
Oh,
blue
great.
over there?
The the purple or the green region? Or the
The green
blue or the green
region
region?
is a mix because if you see how they're shaded differently, that's actually talking about like who's allied with Turkey
Uh-huh.
and which ones are actually not allied with Turkey. And then it like eventually Turkey just dipped, and now it's just like how extreme are you? And that's just what all the green is at this point. But the blue is definitely allies with Turkey, and they're the FSA.
Is the
They've
green a
declared that.
religious faction?
Hayat al Sham is definitely they're all anything that says jihadist at the end, they're religious. So all
Yeah.
of them are religious.
Godspeed, you guys. Oh God. All right. Well, hopefully their progress is small. I mean, if if it looks like things get hopeless, and there's a very real possibility things turn that way for Rojava, is there? Do you think they would be able to like flee towards the towards Iraqi Kurdistan or anything, or like move into a or does everyone here just get conquered?
Well, we got to think that all of this region is really destable now, and anybody fleeing would then just be considered a migrant, and they'd probably be treated as the rest of the migrants, but maybe with a little bit more skepticism because a lot of them would be Kurdish, and a lot of them don't trust the Kurds. I assume some would flee to
Yeah,
Iraqi Kurdistan. Some would actually probably flee to Assad because at least they've had showed some semblance of wanting to work with them, and a lot of them would just stay and fight. But I mean, a lot of this would also depend on Turkey's resettlement of refugees, which is again is against the Geneva Convention, into occupied land in Syria.
you're right. If they moved into any other region, they'd be put into camps. Um, damn.
I wouldn't go that far. I mean, it would depend. I mean, they would be put into like refugee camps, but I mean, I other than that, yeah.
Yeah. Well, they're still pretty spooky. I really hope. I listen. I just hope we don't get like more tanky fuel. Ah, look, the anarchist project has failed due to counter-revolutionary imperialist aggression from other nations. Look how the glorious statist Assad is able to maintain control. Ah.
I'm gonna be honest. Right now, what a bunch of neets online think is my one of my least concerns right now. I mean, I remember when this first happened. I was up till like 2, 3 a.m. calling everybody, trying to figure out what was going on the ground, and I'm very personally emotionally invested in this conflict. So this is like a lot. It means a lot to a lot of people, and I mean, this project
Yeah.
has
This is the closest we've ever seen, not only to like genuine like liberal in the good way, like progressive, like egalitarianism, like rights being disseminated in this region, but it's also like the strongest currently existing anarchist project, the best one we've seen in decades. To see it squashed would be incredibly demoralizing.
what's also very interesting is that this is not just like because the PKK were originally just Marxist Leninists, and that's why I'm like a lot of the ties that they try to like push are like really loose because these people are following a lot more like democratic confederalism pushed by Ocalan, right?
Hmm.
So they're using modern theory. This isn't just like let's try to. This isn't like Farca or like some other like guerrilla movement trying to like trying to rehash a bunch of old ideas.
Bringing out
It's like a
Lenin's
lot.
book, yeah.
Exactly. This is like modern socialism in action, right?
And it
And it's been
works.
and it worked. Not only did it worked worked against one of the most powerful Islamic terrorist groups in the world, who was being supplied by Turkey.
Yeah, this was literally like a political party in alliance with a military faction seizing land, like spreading democracy and egalitarianism and human rights while battling off a death cult and dealing with imperialist aggression from their much stronger neighbors. And they've done it, at least up until now, because they had
Yeah.
America's support.
I mean Trump's complete I mean the thing is I don't find myself agreeing with the Cheneys that often.
Yeah,
But I saw Liz Cheney pissed at Trump
I
saying that
saw
we
that.
backstabbed the
Yeah.
Kurds. I saw Hillary Clinton pissed at Trump because we backstabbed the Kurds. Mitch McConnell, everybody was pissed at Trump. This is literally just Trump being a doofus, and it's going to cause a genocide.
Hmm.
Again, people really, when we're talking about candidates, we're talking about Warren, Bernie, Tulsi, and all this other stuff, Mike Gravel Gang, Gravelista actually. But when we talk about all this, a lot of people tend to forget how important our foreign policy is. The commander in chief is again and will always be the most impactful, powerful thing our president has because we control an empire overseas, and the American public generally isn't extremely well educated on our empire overseas. But everybody we're bombing, everybody we're sending troops to, everybody our military effects is very aware of our
Yeah,
military presence
America can't point.
overseas.
Most Americans can't point like to the countries on a map that we're currently bombing. They have no idea. At least, listen. At least with the British Empire, I have a feeling the average British citizen took some measure of pride in their country's brutalization of the world. Americans don't even know. We don't even know what's going on. It just happens.
Well, a lot of it has to do that if you're working 2 to 3 jobs just to get by, feeding 2 kids, and do you want to spend the maybe 4 to 5 hours you have of free time dealing with
Yeah,
international
it's
political
it's
relations?
tactical. It's tactical ignorance. Yeah, the more you keep the dumb proles in line with busy work, the harder it is for them to meaningfully understand the systems that are put in for them.
Exactly.
Uh,
So I think it's our duty as people with platforms like yourself, and I'm trying to build with the internationalist vision I have going forward, is that it is our job to help inform people who are using their free time to listen to us.
okay, I just want to iterate, guys. Like how like why this is like meaningful. Okay, because like a lot of you already know, but like we don't get like successful leftist projects very often, especially since listen, I'm not the type of person who's just satisfied with like a country declaring itself communist and then abusing its workers. Like that doesn't get my lefty heart pumping. I don't look at China and think like yes, communism will prevail. But like genuinely successful leftist projects, for those of you who don't know, I mean like the Syrian region, not exactly known for progressivism, not exactly known for like, modern socialist theory, I have to say, generally speaking. Again, kind of a shitty region most of the time. And the Kurds, in such a short order, with the constitution they put forward. I don't have it in front of me right now. I know some of its provisions. The libertarian socialism they prescribe, gender equality, them no ethnic preferentialism, one group over another. Now there are allegations that there is some Kurdish preference within Rojava. I'm not saying they're perfect or anything, but like by the standards of the region, this is like beyond extraordinary. It's like it's like wandering through a junk heap and finding like a magnolia flower blooming between like a pile of rotten tomato peels and a tire that's been slashed. It's extraordinary. And I don't know what's going to happen to Rojava. Probably something bad, just because I'm familiar with history, the region and in general of leftist movements. But I think that it really speaks to the potential internal stability of systems like this, even in regions like that, which do not have a historical, cultural predilection towards a strong civil society in the same way that most democratized, industrialized nations do. Most people here, we talk about Americans not having free time to understand the world abroad. Many of these people live in villages. Many of the women here were like ruthlessly oppressed until they were, until the Kurds sort of seized control of the region. The fact that this was able to work at all is a incredible testament to the strength of the values that we are capable of putting forth. It's extraordinary. There have been other projects in this region, other small little confederalist groups, other militias that weren't based on these values, that were more dictatorial, that forced conscription, that were highly patriarchal, and they've flopped. They've died. And this one didn't. Not on its own, at least, not without being invaded by Turkey. And that's really, really cool. And the longer we see this thing through, I think the stronger arguments we'll have in the future as to the potential benefits of this system of living. Sorry, that's my soliloquy.
No problem. I know that we've covered this. If you have any more questions, I'm happy to answer it. I'm also like we talked like we were going to cover a lot more with foreign policy. Is there any other region in the world you'd like to talk about? Any other conflicts?
I think that for just for the sake of keeping things in reasonable blocks, we should probably cut it here. Would you be willing to come on sometime in the near future and talk about Hong Kong with me?
Of course, I'd love to talk about Hong Kong. I've been covering that, blasting that for a while now.
Are there any other actually really quickly, just so I know, because this is probably my ignorance at work here. So the main conflicts that I'm currently familiar with, or the world that we're like paying attention to, from like a lefty perspective, are this one in Syria and the Hong Kong protests. Not that that's a lefty thing, but like democracy, yeehaw, woo. Are there any other major, like well, there's the Kashmir region, I know. Are there any other like major hotspots that we should be focusing on right now? That I should pay more attention to, that I should read up on?
I would say that, like I said, a lot of people don't really remember what went on in Sudan. It was an amazing show of force by the people. I would say covering that. I did a podcast on it. I'd share. I'll send it to you later if you want it. Um,
Please do.
there's a lot of amazing stuff going on in Africa right now. I believe there's. I hope I'm getting the country right. That'd be really bad if I got the wrong country.
Hey,
There's
listen,
like
I mess up all the time on stream. It's all good.
yeah, that's what it's my job. And if I get get the country right, boom,
It's
I lose all
my
my work.
job too. But yeah, I know. Yeah.
I believe Nigeria is going through a lot of protests right now, actually, and Iraq actually right now is going through a lot of anti-government protests, which are amazing because they're just mowing down protesters, but they're not stopping. Right now, there's just been a huge resurgence of resistance. It's not to the extent of the Arab Spring, but it's really it feels really good. It just feels really good to see this happening over the world.
Yeah, that's gonna feel real bad when the
Oh, one last
when
one.
the
What's
Turks
going on
start
in Libya
moving
right now?
south. Yeah.
What's going on in Libya right now?
Hmm.
People completely forgot. Like right now, there's like a huge like conflict between a UN-backed government and a warlord, literally trying to roll that over,
Wait,
which is pretty interesting.
where the fuck is Libya? Libya.
It's the thing the Clintons and Obama butchered. It's right. You're right. Next to Algeria, next to Egypt,
Next to Egypt.
next to Egypt.
Libya. What? Wait, that's bigger than I thought it would be. Hello.
Yep.
Listen, I'm America. I'm American. Okay. When I was talking about Americans, I was talking about myself. So don't. Oh God.
Yeah.
Oh hey, that's Benghazi. I know that from all the memes.
Yeah. Good times.
This is where
Wonderful
Hillary
time.
Clinton died.
This is where Hillary Clinton gave the Contras all the guns, right?
Wait a second. This map is sick. This can go from a global map to zooming in on streets. I thought this was just like a
Yeah.
little. This is
When
a
I was
really
in
cool
high
map.
school, these maps helped give me an interest in foreign policy because I would actually follow the Syrian conflict day by day. That's one of the reasons why I have such a personal attachment to Rojava because I kind of grew up with them in foreign policy because I would watch their troop movements, I would watch their successes against ISIS, and I would cheer with them.
Wait, how old are you?
I'm 18.
Hell yeah. Folks,
Ye-
never let age hold you back, okay? I'm getting zoomed on this conversation. Um, yeah, chat's molding now because now they feel like they're under accomplishing. Um, 1 second. Somebody really wanted to know before you dip. Someone was curious in your opinion on the Syrian Democratic Forces.
I got to do that, but then can I like shout out my stuff?
Oh yeah, absolutely. You're not leaving without
Okay.
that.
Awesome. So the SDF really, I'm happy with that development. I'm happy that the SDF is a thing because it gave a better like ability for America to not only support the fight against ISIS, but it allows like Rojava not to just be like, hey, we're just Kurdistan, and oh, there's the Syrians here, and there's other groups here, and oh yeah, we're gonna ignore that. No, it allowed them to be included into the fight against ISIS and allowed them representation in the armed forces. So it was a good tactic for militarily, and it was a good tactic to fight like Kurdish nationalism.
Nice. All right. Well, a lot of good news, a lot of bad news, a lot of mixed news. Glad I live in a stable country. Do you? Last question before you dip. Do you have any plans of ever physically visiting or contributing, or would you rather not die?
I actually heavily considered it when I was younger, but I mean, then again, I was just a little teen boy, so I couldn't really do anything. But if it continues to be a safe region, well, it continues to be if it becomes a safe region and it just does well, um, I would love to go there one day and just one day. I mean, in my dream scenario, I would love to one day be the ambassador to Rojava. That's the dream. That is the dream.
That would be extraordinary, but I hope it works.
Yeah, yeah.
Hey, listen, when you're ambassador for Java, you got to shout me out, okay? During one of your addresses, during one of your meetings, all right? You got to meet with Assad and shake
Hmm.
his hand and say, "Subscribe to Vosh." Okay? Can you do that
You're
for me?
gonna. Yeah, I think I'm gonna fumble, get nervous, and then accidentally like tell him to kill you, and then you're gonna have to do it.
Put a hit on Vosh. Ah, shit. All right, never mind. Don't mention me. Don't put my fucking name in these people's mouths. Please plug.
Okay, so my main thing I'm pushing personally, and then I'm gonna say the stuff I'm pushing. Like, number one, I want all of you, since like are the one thing you can do to actually help Rojava right now. There's actually a thing you can do. For some reason, the government cares. So actually, like, message a congressman, message your senators, like, just send them an email on their website, give their office a call, say how like you want them to actually stick up for them. You want Trump to not like cause a genocide, and like defend this region. Like these people actually seem interested in this. So if they actually see like public support, that will really actually help push them. Because then not only will they see it as a good strategic move for America's empire for a lot of these more cynical politicians, but they'll also see it as a good move for their polling. So I would ask you all to please message your representatives. Please do it. I know you're a bunch of neats and you want to play your Kiras or whatever, but please, it doesn't take that long. Second thing, I am the foreign policy advisor for Michaela Wilkes. So we just hit $80,000 as a campaign, which is cool because that's the most anybody's ever risen raised against Steny Hoyer, who's most likely, if he wins again, going to be the next Speaker of the House. This is a guy who takes hundreds of thousands of dollars from the health insurance industry. This is a guy who actually was one of the main perpetuators of this Yemeni civil war until recently. And this is a guy who's constantly kneecapped progressive movements. This guy's been in there for 40 years, and we are the most successful campaign to ever run against him. And so we really need, more than anything, we need money. A lot of you don't live in Maryland and you can't help us out. So please go to our website. Please donate to Michaela Wilkes. $5, $10, whatever you can give. And the last thing for me personally, to help me out, to help your boy out, I need people following me on Twitter. I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but it actually helps you on a local level, because once you have like $5,000, 5,000 like followers on Twitter on a local level, like all the boomers look at you like, oh my God, this guy, whoa, he can be the next governor, because like they just don't understand how social media works. So it actually really helps me. So if you could follow my Twitter, which is now in chat, that would really, really help me like on a genuine
Exclamation
level.
point Twappy if you want to get Dylan's Twitter at any point in time. Please do help. How cool would it be if we were like in any way, shape, or form, even in the slightest possible way, associated with a successful bid for Congress? That would be pretty darn cool.
That'd be pretty cool. Also, if you have a second, I'd love to talk about some local work I'm doing with worker co-ops.
Yeah, no, please, absolutely.
So I since I wasn't able to run this time, but I'm getting a lot of endorsements to run next time. It looks really cool. In 2 years, I'm going to run for city council, be the youngest city councilman in history. My platform is a worker co-op based platform. Oh, trans rights. Okay. Worker co-op based platform. It's going to talk a lot about rent control. Yes, boy. I want it on a national level, but we got to do local level first. And it's going to talk a lot about like worker safety and respect, and I want to unionize the entire city workforce and unionize the workers in our city. So it's a very leftist platform. So again, follow me on Twitter. You can follow my campaigns. You can follow my work. I need that support. It'd be really helpful.
Please do, comrades. And next time you come on, we can talk about rent control, because I'm not actually a huge fan of it. I'm more of a government housing type of man myself. That's the hat and coat I put on before I walk out the door. But I'd rather see it than not.
I got like a Pete Buttigieg-esque mayor, so I got to take what I can get, man.
No, I gotcha. Hey, listen, Godspeed. Thank you so much for lending to us your expertise. I really do appreciate it. I look forward to being able to speak with you on Hong Kong and other matters.
No problem. Just schedule with me. We'll have a great time. See you later.
Have a good one.
Bye.
Damn. What he literally said trans rights, guys. What an extraordinarily ambitious Zoomer. Damn.